"Get that thing out of here. We do not serve people like you." The voice was cold and sharp. Veronika stood at the grand entrance of the obsidian, blocking the heavy glass doors with her body. She pointed a perfectly manicured finger directly at the baby sleeping in Elena's arms. "Excuse me," Elena asked. Her voice trembled not from fear but from exhaustion. "I have a reservation." "A reservation?" Veronika laughed, a cruel sound that echoed off the marble walls. "Don't lie to me. Look at you, you are wearing rags, you smell like the rain, and that baby, he is probably bringing in diseases." Elena stepped forward, holding her son tighter. "Do not speak about my son like that. I am here to meet Marcus Thorne." Veronika sneered, leaning in close so her expensive perfume choked the air. "Mr. Thorne does not meet with trash, and he certainly does not meet with the help." She reached out and shoved Elena's shoulder hard. "I said, get out." Elena stumbled back, clutching baby Leo to keep him from falling. "Don't touch me. Make me," Veronika hissed. Then, without a second of hesitation, Veronika's hand flew through the air. She slapped Elena across the face with brutal force. The sound of the slap cracked through the quiet restaurant like a whip. The entire room went deadly silent. Veronika smiled, a twisted look of satisfaction on her face as Elena touched her stinging cheek. "Now," the hostess whispered, "I am calling the police to take you and that little bastard straight to jail." Little did she know, the woman she just slapped was the most important person in Marcus Thorne's life. And in 5 minutes, Veronika's entire world was about to crumble. Veronika thought she was untouchable. She judged a struggling mother by her clothes and assumed she was a nobody. But she made one fatal mistake. She didn't know that this poor woman held a secret that the billionaire owner would do anything to protect. Before we watch justice get served in the most satisfying way possible, hit that like button if you believe dignity matters more than money. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story where the arrogant get exactly what they deserve. Now, let's go back to the beginning to see what happens when you slap the wrong woman. To understand why that slap shattered more than just the silence of a restaurant, we have to go back. We have to rewind the clock 8 hours before the lights, the luxury, and the violence. We have to go to a place where the air didn't smell of expensive truffle oil, but of damp coats, old coffee, and relentless hope. It was 8 o'clock in the morning in Chicago, and the sky was a bruised shade of gray. The rain had already begun, a cold, miserable drizzle that promised to turn into a storm by nightfall. In the south side of the city, the wind whipped around the corners of the brick buildings, stinging the faces of anyone brave enough to be outside. Dr. Elena Vance stood at the bus stop, shielding her 10-month-old son, Leo, from the biting wind. She pulled his small knitted blanket tighter around his face, tucking it under her chin. Leo was warm, sleeping soundly against her chest in his carrier, unaware that his mother's coat was thin and her boots were leaking. Elena shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Her back already ached, a dull throb that lived permanently at the base of her spine. She was 32 years old, a black woman with eyes that held a lifetime of stories and hands that were roughened by work. To the people driving past in their warm cars, she was just another woman waiting for the bus in the rain. They saw the worn-out sneakers. They saw the faded yellow T-shirt peeking out from under her jacket. They saw a single mother struggling to get by. They didn't see the doctorate degree in her bag. They didn't see the miracle worker. They didn't see the only person in the city who could unlock a mind that had been closed for 6 years. The bus finally hissed to a halt in front of her, spewing a cloud of gray exhaust into the rain. Elena climbed aboard, paying her fare with coins she had counted out carefully on her kitchen table that morning. She found a seat near the back, squeezing in next to a window that rattled with every bump in the road. She rested her head against the cold glass and closed her eyes for a moment, just a moment. She couldn't afford to sleep. She had to mentally prepare for the day. Today was a big day. Today was her session with Noah. Noah Thorne, 6 years old. The son of Marcus Thorne, the billionaire real estate tycoon who practically owned Chicago. Most people would hear that name and think of money. They would think of the penthouses, the private jets, the power. But when Elena thought of the Thornes, she didn't think of money, she thought of silence. Noah had nonverbal autism. For 6 years, he had lived in a fortress of quiet. He had never spoken a word, not mama, not hungry, not hurt. Nothing. He moved through the world like a ghost, present but unreachable. His father, Marcus, had hired every specialist in the country. He had flown in doctors from Switzerland, speech therapists from New York. They all left, telling Marcus the same thing. The boy is broken, he will never speak, you should consider an institution. But Marcus Thorne refused to give up. And then he found Elena. Elena didn't wear a suit. She didn't work in a marble office. She worked at the South Side Community Center, a building with peeling paint and a heating system that rattled like a dying engine. But she had something those other doctors didn't. She had patience. She had a belief that every child, no matter how silent, had a voice waiting to be heard. The bus lurched to a stop, shaking Elena from her thoughts. She gathered her bags, held Leo tight, and stepped out into the puddles. The community center was buzzing with activity. It was a haven for the neighborhood. It smelled of floor wax and wet wool. Elena walked to the small nursery room and handed sleeping Leo to Mrs. Higgins, the elderly woman who watched the staff's children. "He ate at 7, Elena whispered, kissing Leo's soft forehead. "He will be hungry by noon." "Go on, baby," Mrs. Higgins said kindly, patting Elena's arm. "Go work your magic. That little boy is waiting for you." Elena walked down the hallway to her therapy room. It was small. It didn't have expensive equipment. It had a colorful rug that she had bought at a thrift store, a beanbag chair, and shelves filled with simple toys. But to Elena, this room was a sanctuary. She took off her wet coat and sat down on the rug. She checked the time, 9 o'clock. The door opened, and Noah's nanny walked in, holding the boy's hand. Noah looked small for his age, dressed in clothes that were expensive but looked uncomfortable. He had curly hair and big, soulful brown eyes that always seemed to be looking at something no one else could see. "Good morning, Noah," Elena said softly. Her voice was like a melody, calm and low. Noah didn't respond. He didn't look at her. He let go of the nanny's hand and walked straight to the corner of the room, sitting down with his back to Elena. He began to rock back and forth, a gentle, rhythmic motion. The nanny sighed, looking at her watch. "Good luck, Dr. Vance. He had a bad night." Lots of screaming. "Mr. Thorne is, well, he's barely holding it together." "Thank you, Brenda," Elena said. "I'll see you at 5. The door closed and the silence descended. For the first hour, Elena didn't try to force him to do anything. She didn't demand eye contact. She didn't ask questions. She simply sat near him, respecting his space. She picked up a wooden block and placed it on the floor, then another. She started building a tower, humming a quiet tune. Noah stopped rocking. He was listening. Elena knew that Noah wasn't ignoring the world. He was overwhelmed by it. The lights were too bright, the sounds were too loud, the textures were too rough. His silence was his shield. Slowly, inch by inch, Noah turned around. He watched her stack the blocks. Elena slid a blue block across the rug towards him. She didn't say a word, she just offered it. Noah looked at the block, then he looked at Elena's hand. His small fingers reached out, hesitant, trembling slightly. He took the block. It was a small connection, a tiny thread, but Elena held onto it. Hours passed. Outside, the rain turned heavier, drumming against the window pane. Inside, the battle for Noah's voice was being fought, not with weapons, but with toys and whispers. Elena brought out the plastic animals. This was their routine. "Look, Noah," Elena whispered, holding up a plastic cow. "Moo," Noah stared at the cow. Elena put it down and picked up a sheep. Bah, she picked up a horse. A blue plastic horse with chipped paint on its tail. It was Noah's favorite. Horse, Elena said, elongating the sound, letting the vibrations of the word hang in the air. Horse. She moved the horse through the air, making it gallop. Noah's eyes tracked the movement. His focus was intense. Elena could see the gears turning behind those brown eyes. She could see the desire to connect, buried under layers of fear and confusion. "Can you show me the horse?" Elena asked gently. Noah reached out and grabbed the horse. He held it close to his chest. "Good job," Elena praised him. "That is the horse." They worked through lunch. They worked through the afternoon. Elena's stomach rumbled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten breakfast, but she ignored it. She could feel something different in the room today. The air felt charged, like the atmosphere before a lightning strike. Noah was more present. He was looking at her more. He was making sounds in his throat, little grunts and hums, as if he was testing the machinery of his voice. At 4:30, just 30 minutes before the session was scheduled to end, Elena decided to try something new. She stood up and walked to the corkboard on the wall. Pinned there were pictures of everyday things: an apple, a ball, a car, and a picture of a family. It was a stock photo, just a man holding a little boy, smiling. Elena gently guided Noah to stand in front of the board. "Noah," she said, tapping the picture. "Look." Noah looked at the picture. He stared at the man holding the boy. Elena knelt beside him so she was at his eye level. She pointed to the man in the photo. "Daddy," she whispered. She watched Noah's face. She saw a flicker of recognition, not of the man in the photo, but of the concept, the feeling. Noah had a father who loved him desperately. A father who came home late every night but always went into Noah's room to sit by his bed, whispering stories to a sleeping boy who couldn't answer back. Noah knew who his father was. He felt that love. "Daddy," Elena said again, pressing her lips together to show him the shape of the sound. "Da-dee-dee-why." Noah turned his head. He looked at Elena. His eyes were wide, searching hers. He took a breath, a sharp intake of air. His mouth opened. His tongue moved against his teeth. "D." The sound was barely a whisper. It was soft, like dry leaves moving on a sidewalk. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She froze. She didn't dare to breathe. She didn't dare to hope. "D." Noah tried again. His brow furrowed in concentration. He was fighting 6 years of silence. He was fighting his own brain. "Daya," Elena nodded, tears instantly filling her eyes, blurring her vision. "Yes, baby, yes." Noah looked at the picture again. He pointed a small finger at the man. "Daya, D, Daddy." The word fell from his lips, clumsy and unpolished, but it was the most beautiful sound Elena had ever heard. It echoed in the small room, bouncing off the peeling paint and the colorful rug. "Daddy," Noah said again, stronger this time, more confident. Elena let out a sob she couldn't hold back. She covered her mouth with her hand. "Noah," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You found it. You found your voice." Noah looked at her, and for the first time in 6 years, he smiled. It wasn't a reflex. It was a genuine, proud smile. He clapped his hands together, a burst of happy energy. "Daddy," he said, laughing. Elena fell back onto the rug, laughing and crying at the same time. This was it. This was the miracle Marcus Thorne had prayed for. This was the breakthrough that every other doctor said was impossible. The door creaked open. It was Sarah, the receptionist. "Dr. Vance," Sarah whispered, peeking in. "It's 5 o'clock. The driver is here." Elena scrambled up. She wiped her face, but the tears kept coming. "Sarah," Elena gasped. "He spoke. He said Daddy." Sarah's eyes went wide. "You're joking." "No," Elena shook her head, grabbing her bag. "I have to tell Marcus. I have to tell him right now." She hurriedly helped Noah into his coat. "Come on, Noah, let's go see Daddy." At the word Daddy, Noah beamed. Elena ran to the nursery and scooped up Leo, who was awake and cooing. She didn't care about the rain anymore. She didn't care about her aching back. She grabbed her diaper bag and marched out the front door to the waiting black SUV. Henry, the driver, was standing there with an umbrella. "Good evening, Dr. Vance," Henry said politely. "Henry," Elena said, her voice rushing out in a breathless tumble. "Call Mr. Thorne right now." Henry paused, looking at her wild eyes and tear-stained face. "Is everything okay? Is the boy hurt?" "No, Henry, it's good news. It's the best news," Elena insisted. Noah spoke. He spoke. Henry's jaw dropped. He looked down at the little boy holding Elena's hand. "Well, I'll be," Henry whispered. "Call him," Elena urged. "Tell him I need to bring Noah to him. He needs to hear this tonight." "He can't wait until Monday." Henry nodded vigorously. "Mr. Thorne is at a dinner meeting downtown, at the Obsidian." "I don't care where he is," Elena said. "Just tell him we are coming." Henry helped Noah into the back of the luxury car. As the door closed, separating the wealthy child from the therapist, Elena felt a sudden chill. She couldn't go in the car. It was against protocol. She wasn't family, she was staff. "I will take the bus," Elena said to Henry. "Tell him I will meet him there." "Are you sure, doctor?" Henry asked, looking at the pouring rain. "I can drive you." "No, take Noah home or to his father. I will meet you there, just call him." As the black car pulled away, splashing water onto the sidewalk, Elena pulled out her phone. She had a text message incoming. It was from Marcus. "Henry just called me. He was crying. He said Noah spoke. Elena, is this true?" Elena typed back with shaking fingers. "Yes, it is true." A second later, another text appeared. "I am at the Obsidian. Please, come to me. I need to hear it. I need to see him do it. I have cleared a table for you. Please come." The Obsidian. Elena stared at the name on the screen. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. She knew the Obsidian. Everyone knew it. It was the most exclusive restaurant in Chicago. It was a place where politicians and celebrities dined. It was a place of golden chandeliers and velvet chairs. She looked down at herself. Her sneakers were soaked through, squelching with every step. Her jeans were old and stained from sitting on the floor all day. Her yellow t-shirt was wrinkled, and she was holding a baby on her hip. She looked like a mess. She looked like someone who cleaned the floors at the Obsidian, not someone who dined there. "I can't go in there," she whispered to Leo. But then she remembered Noah's smile. She remembered the sound of that word. Daddy. Marcus Thorne was a billionaire, yes. But he was also a father who had waited 6 years for this moment. If she went home now, the moment might pass. Noah might retreat back into his shell. Marcus needed this. Elena took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of rain and exhaust. "We are going, Leo," she said, adjusting the baby on her hip. "We are going to make a father very happy." She didn't know it yet, but that decision was about to walk her straight into the path of a woman named Veronika. She didn't know that her clothes would be used as a weapon against her. She didn't know that in less than an hour, she would be standing in a room full of strangers, humiliated, slapped, and threatened with jail. She just thought she was doing her job. Elena walked to the bus stop. The rain hammered down harder, soaking her hair, plastering it to her skull. When the bus finally arrived, it was crowded and hot. She squeezed into a seat, ignoring the stares of people looking at her wet clothes. By the time she reached downtown, the storm was raging. She had to run the last 3 blocks to the restaurant. She shielded Leo with her own body, taking the brunt of the freezing wind. When she finally arrived at the Obsidian, she was breathless. She stood under the golden awning, shivering. She tried to wipe the water from her face, but her hands were wet too. She looked at her reflection in the dark glass of the restaurant doors, a black woman, drenched, holding a baby, wearing rags. She looked poor. She looked undesirable. But she straightened her spine. She was Dr. Elena Vance. She had saved a boy's life today. She had every right to be here. She reached out and pulled the heavy brass handle. The door opened. The warmth of the restaurant hit her like a wall. The smell of expensive food and perfume filled her nose. And there, standing at the podium like a guard dog at the gates of heaven, was Veronika. Veronika looked up, her blue eyes icy cold. She didn't see a doctor. She didn't see a miracle worker, she saw trash. "Excuse me," Elena began, and that is where our story truly begins. "Excuse me," Elena said, her voice sounding too loud in the hushed, elegant room. Veronika did not stop typing, she did not blink. She let the silence stretch out, using it as a weapon. It was a power play, a way of saying, "You are so beneath me that you do not even deserve my eye contact." Elena shifted Leo's weight on her hip. The baby was waking up, sensing his mother's tension. He let out a small, fussy whimper. That sound finally made Veronika look up. Her eyes were not just cold, they were empty. She looked at Elena the way one looks at a stain on a pristine white tablecloth. Her gaze traveled from Elena's wet, frizzy hair down to her soaked sneakers, then back up to the sleeping baby. "Deliveries are around the back," Veronika said. Her voice was flat, bored, and loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Elena felt a flush of heat rise up her neck. It was not the first time she had been mistaken for help, but tonight, with the fatigue deep in her bones and the triumph of Noah's voice still echoing in her heart, it cut deeper than usual. "I am not a delivery driver," Elena said, keeping her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "I am here to eat. I am here to meet someone." Veronika actually laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, like glass breaking. She leaned forward over the podium, resting her elbows on the polished wood. "You, here," Veronika scoffed. "Honey, look around. Do you see a drive-through window? This is the Obsidian. The water here costs more than your shoes. We don't have tables for people who bring the outside in." She wrinkled her nose, making a show of smelling the rain and damp wool that clung to Elena. "I know where I am," Elena said, stepping closer. "I have a reservation. 7:30, under Vance." Veronika raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "A reservation? Did you make it for the soup kitchen down the street and get lost?" A few diners at the nearest table chuckled. A man in a gray suit shook his head, muttering something about standards slipping. The shame burned Elena's skin, but she refused to back down. She was Dr. Elena Vance. She had saved a little boy's future today. She had every right to be here. "Check the list," Elena insisted. "Please, just check the list." Veronika sighed, a dramatic, heavy exhale. She tapped the screen of her tablet once, barely looking at it. "Nope, nothing, no Vance," she lied smoothly. "Now please leave. You are making the floor wet and you are disturbing our premium guests." "That is a lie," Elena said. Her voice rose, fueled by a sudden spark of anger. "I have a text message from Marcus Thorne. He invited me here." At the mention of the owner's name, Veronika froze for a split second. But then she looked at Elena's cheap yellow t-shirt and her confidence returned. Marcus Thorne was a billionaire. He didn't know people like this. "Mr. Thorne," Veronika mocked. "You think Mr. Thorne invites homeless women with screaming babies to his 5-star restaurant? You are delusional. Now get out before I call security." "I will show you," Elena said. She shifted Leo to one arm, struggling to balance him as he began to cry, sensing the hostility in the air. She reached into her diaper bag with her free hand, digging past the diapers and the wipes, searching for her phone. "I have the proof right here," Elena said. Her fingers brushed the cold metal of her phone case. She pulled it out. "Look," Elena held the phone out towards the hostess, but her hand was wet from the rain. Her grip was slippery. Veronika didn't look at the screen. Instead, she swatted her hand through the air as if shooing away a fly. "Get that thing away from me," Veronika snapped. Her hand connected with Elena's wrist. It was a hard, dismissive slap to the arm. Elena's grip failed. The phone flew out of her hand, skidding across the marble floor with a sickening scratch sliding under a nearby table. "Oops," Veronika said, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. "Butterfingers." "My phone," Elena gasped. That phone was her lifeline. It was the only way to reach Marcus. It was the only way to prove she belonged here. She started to bend down to retrieve it, but Leo was crying harder now, wailing against her chest. "That is enough." The voice came from behind Veronika. It was Mr. Gable, the manager. He was a short, nervous man who cared more about the restaurant's reviews than human decency. "Veronika, what is this noise?" Mr. Gable demanded. "People are trying to eat." "This woman is refusing to leave, sir," Veronika said, her voice instantly changing. She sounded sweet, innocent, victimized. "She's crazy. She's claiming she knows the owner. She's shouting at the guests. And look, she threw her phone at me." Mr. Gable looked at Elena. He didn't see a doctor. He didn't see a mother doing her best. He saw a problem. He saw a disruption to his perfect evening service. "Ma'am," Mr. Gable said coldly, stepping between Elena and her phone. "You need to leave, immediately. We have a strict dress code and a strict code of conduct." She knocked my phone out of my hand. Elena cried, pointing at Veronika. "She is lying. I am Dr. Elena Vance, and I am the King of France," Veronika muttered under her breath. "Get out," Mr. Gable ordered, "or we call the police." Elena looked at her phone, lying out of reach under the table. She looked at the manager blocking her path. She looked at Veronika's smug face. Something inside Elena broke, not her spirit, but her patience. She was done being treated like dirt. "I am not leaving until I see Marcus," Elena said, her voice shaking with the force of her conviction. "I have news about his son, news he has waited 6 years to hear. Do you really want to be the ones who stopped him from hearing it?" Veronika's eyes narrowed. She didn't like being challenged. She stepped out from behind the podium, invading Elena's personal space. She leaned in close, so close that Elena could see the heavy layers of makeup on her face. "Listen to me, you welfare case," Veronika hissed, her voice low and venomous. "Nobody cares about your news. Nobody cares about your brat. You are trash. You are dirtying my floor. Get out." Elena froze. The insult to her was one thing, but the insult to her son— "Do not," Elena whispered, her voice deadly calm, "call my son trash." "I'll call him whatever I want," Veronika sneered. "Now take your little bastard and—" Elena didn't think. She reacted. She stepped forward, chest to chest with the bully. "Shut your mouth," Veronika gasped. She stumbled back, not because Elena touched her, but because she saw an opportunity. "She's attacking me," Veronika screamed. Her voice was shrill, echoing off the high ceilings. "Help, she's attacking me," the restaurant erupted. Chairs scraped as people stood up. And then Veronika did it. With the eyes of the room upon her, she raised her hand. She put all her frustration, all her arrogance, all her hate into one motion. Veronika's palm connected with Elena's cheek with brutal force. Elena's head snapped to the side. She stumbled, nearly dropping Leo. The baby, terrified by the sudden violence and the loud noise, screamed at the top of his lungs. Elena caught herself on a pillar. She touched her cheek. It burned like fire. She tasted the metallic tang of blood in her mouth where her tooth had cut her lip. She looked up, stunned. The room was spinning. "You," Elena gasped. "You just hit me." "I was defending myself," Veronika shouted to the crowd, clutching her own chest in fake terror. "She tried to hit me. You all saw it. She's violent." "She hit her first," a woman at a back table whispered, but her husband hushed her. "Don't get involved, Linda." Mr. Gable was already on his radio. His face was pale. "Security, police, get the police here now. We have an assault in progress. Level 1. Elena stood alone in the center of the golden room. Her face was throbbing. Her baby was screaming in her ear. She was surrounded by wealth, yet she had never felt more powerless. "I didn't touch her," Elena said to the room, her eyes pleading with the diners. "Please, someone tell the truth. She hit me." But no one spoke up. They looked at their plates. They looked at their phones. They looked anywhere but at the black woman in the wet t-shirt standing, accused, in the center of the room. "You stay right there," Mr. Gable barked at Elena. "Don't you move." Elena wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to protect Leo, to get away from these people. But she knew how the world worked. If she ran, she was guilty. If she ran, she was a criminal, so she stood still. She rocked Leo, whispering soft words into his ear, trying to calm him down, trying to calm herself down. 10 minutes. That was how long it took for the nightmare to get worse. The sound of sirens cut through the rain outside. Blue and red lights flashed against the large glass windows, painting the restaurant in chaotic colors. The door swung open and Officer Briggs walked in. Officer Briggs was a large man. He had a shaved head and a jaw that looked like it was made of granite. He walked with a heavy, confident stride, his hand resting casually on his utility belt. He didn't look like a man who asked questions. He looked like a man who gave orders. He walked straight to Mr. Gable. "What's the situation?" Briggs asked, his voice deep and bored. "This woman," Mr. Gable pointed a shaking finger at Elena. "She trespassed. She harassed the staff, and then she physically assaulted our hostess." Briggs turned his head slowly. He looked at Veronika. Veronika was dabbing at dry eyes with a napkin, looking small and fragile. "Is that true, ma'am?" Briggs asked her. "Yes, officer," Veronika sniffled. "I asked her to leave because of the dress code, and she just snapped. She came at me. I was so scared. I think she might be on something." "On something?" Briggs repeated. He finally turned to look at Elena. He saw the wet clothes. He saw the red eyes. He saw the crying baby, and in his mind the case was already closed. "Ma'am," Briggs said, walking towards Elena, "step away from the guests." "Officer," Elena said, her voice shaking. "I am the victim here. She slapped me. Look at my face." Briggs didn't look at her face. He looked at her hands. "Put the bag on the floor," he ordered. "I didn't do anything," Elena pleaded. "I am waiting for the owner. I am a doctor." "A doctor?" Briggs scoffed. He looked her up and down. "And I'm the mayor. Put the bag down, now." Elena slowly lowered her shoulder. She placed the heavy diaper bag on the marble floor. "Step back," Briggs commanded. Elena took a step back, clutching Leo. Briggs reached down. He grabbed the bottom of the diaper bag. And then, with a callous, careless motion, he dumped it upside down. Everything spilled out. It was a cascade of intimacy and necessity scattered on the cold, hard floor. Diapers tumbled out. A half-empty bottle of milk rolled away, leaving a white trail. A small stuffed bear, a pacifier, wipes. And Noah's blue plastic horse. It was humiliating. It was a violation. "Hey," Elena cried out. "That is my son's milk. You are spilling it." Briggs kicked through the pile with his heavy black boot, looking for drugs, looking for a weapon, looking for anything to justify his bias. "Quiet," he snapped. "I'm conducting a search." He found nothing but baby supplies and a wallet worn thin at the edges. He picked up her wallet and flipped it open. He saw the ID, Elena Vance, no cash. Trespassing, assault, disorderly conduct. Briggs listed the charges as if reading a grocery list. He looked up at Elena. "You're in a lot of trouble." "I want to file a complaint," Elena said, standing tall despite the fear gripping her heart. "That woman assaulted me. You need to check the cameras." "The manager says the cameras are down," Briggs lied, or maybe he just assumed. He didn't care. "Turn around. Put your hands behind your back." He pulled a pair of silver handcuffs from his belt. They rattled ominously. "What about my son?" Elena whispered. "I can't go to jail. I have a baby." Briggs shrugged. He looked at Mr. Gable. "Call social services. Tell them we have an emergency removal. We need a foster placement for an infant tonight." The words hit Elena harder than the slap. Foster placement. They were going to take Leo. They were going to take her baby and hand him to strangers because she had been slapped by a rich woman. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced her chest. The room started to close in. "No," Elena said, backing away until her back hit the polished wood of the bar. "You can't take him. He is nursing." "He needs me." "You should have thought about that before you started a fight in a high-end restaurant," Briggs said, stepping closer. Give me the kid, ma'am. Don't make me use force. Do not touch my son, Elena screamed. Resisting arrest, Briggs added to the list. That's a felony. Elena looked around the room. Veronika was smiling, a cruel, triumphant smile. Mr. Gable was looking at the floor, ashamed but silent. The diners were watching the show, safe in their bubbles of privilege. She was alone. Truly, completely alone. But then she remembered the phone. Her phone was still under the table where it had fallen. Officer, Elena said, her voice trembling but fierce. Before you arrest me, I have rights. Briggs paused. He looked bored. You have the right to remain silent. I have the right to one phone call, Elena said. She stared him straight in the eye, channeling every ounce of strength she had left. And I am making it right now. Briggs laughed. He actually laughed. Honey, you can call Jesus for all I care. It won't stop you from going to a cell tonight. It is my legal right, Elena insisted. Or do you want to add violation of due process to the lawsuit I am going to file against you? Briggs's smile faded slightly. He hated lawyers. He hated paperwork. Fine, he spat. One call, make it quick, and if you try anything, you're on the ground. Elena scrambled to her knees. She reached under the table. Her hand closed around her phone. The screen was cracked, but it lit up. She swiped it open. Her fingers were shaking so hard she almost dropped it again. She found the recent calls list. Marcus Noah's dad. She pressed the button. She put the phone to her ear. The phone rang and rang and rang. Pick up, she whispered. Please, God, pick up. Elena, the voice on the other end was deep. It was warm, and tonight it sounded like salvation. You're late, Marcus said. I'm sitting at table 12. Henry said you were coming. Is everything okay? Elena closed her eyes. A single tear leaked out, rolling over the burning red handprint on her cheek. She let out a breath she had been holding for 20 minutes. Marcus, she choked out, her voice cracked. I'm outside, at the front. Okay, Marcus said. Just come in, the host will bring you. I can't, Elena interrupted him, a sob escaping her throat. Your hostess, she slapped me. She slapped me in the face, Marcus. Your manager called the police. And there is an officer standing here with handcuffs. He is telling me he is going to take Leo away. He says he is putting my baby in foster care. There was silence on the line. It wasn't the silence of confusion. It wasn't the silence of a bad connection. It was the silence of a hurricane holding its breath. It was the silence of a father who had just been told his savior was being destroyed. Who is the officer? Marcus asked. His voice had changed. It was no longer warm. It was ice cold. It was terrifying. Officer Briggs, Elena whispered. Give him the phone, Marcus ordered. Marcus, he's aggressive, he won't. Elena, Marcus said, give him the phone. Elena pulled the phone away from her ear. She looked up at the looming figure of Officer Briggs. Officer, she said, the owner wants to speak to you. Briggs rolled his eyes. The owner? Yeah, right. Probably your boyfriend pretending to be someone important. He snatched the phone from her hand. Put it to his ear with a smug, arrogant grin. Yeah, this is Officer Briggs. Who is this? Elena watched. She watched the color drain from Briggs's face like water down a drain. She watched his eyes go wide with sudden, absolute panic. She watched his smug grin vanish, replaced by the look of a man who realized he had just stepped on a landmine. Mr. Thorne, Briggs stammered. His voice squeaked. Sir, I didn't know. The hostess said she was a trespasser. Yes, sir. No, sir. I didn't touch the baby, I swear. Briggs listened for another moment. He swallowed hard. He looked at Elena with pure fear. Yes, sir, I understand. I will wait right here. Briggs lowered the phone slowly. His hand was shaking uncontrollably. He handed the phone back to Elena like it was made of fragile glass. He said to wait, Briggs whispered. Veronika stepped forward, her heels clicking on the floor. She looked confused. Officer, why aren't you cuffing her? What is going on? Before anyone could answer, a sound roared from the street outside. It was the aggressive, guttural growl of a twin-turbo V8 engine. Tires screeched against the wet pavement. A sleek, silver sports car drifted around the corner, jumped the curb, and slammed to a halt right in front of the glass doors of the restaurant. The doors flew open. Marcus Thorne stepped out. He wasn't wearing his usual pristine suit jacket. His tie was undone. His hair was wet from the rain. He looked like a man possessed. "Mr. Thorne," Veronika gasped. She quickly smoothed her dress, putting on her best smile. We weren't expecting you at the front entrance." Marcus didn't even look at her. He didn't look at the manager. He didn't look at the police officer. He walked straight to Elena. He saw the wet clothes. He saw the scattered diapers on the floor. And then he saw the angry, red handprint blooming on her cheek. The billionaire's face went rigid. His eyes filled with a terrifying, cold rage. "Did she hit you?" Marcus asked. His voice was quiet, but in the silent room it sounded like thunder. Elena looked at him. She nodded. "Yes," she whispered. Marcus turned around slowly. He faced Veronika. And for the first time all night, Veronika looked scared. The silence that filled the obsidian was different now. Before, it had been a silence of judgment, a heavy blanket used to suffocate a struggling mother. But now, it was the silence of a held breath. It was the terrified silence of a predator who suddenly realizes they have walked into the lion's den. Veronika, the woman who had stood so tall and proud just moments ago, seemed to shrink. Her expensive black dress, her perfect hair, her arrogant posture, none of it mattered under the crushing weight of Marcus Thorne's stare. "Mr. Thorne," Veronika stammered. Her voice, usually so sharp and commanding, was now thin and reedy. I was just protecting the restaurant. You know how it is, we have to maintain standards." Marcus took a step closer to her. He didn't shout, he didn't raise his hand. He simply existed in her space, radiating a power that money couldn't buy. "Standards," Marcus repeated. The word tasted like ash in his mouth. "You think slapping a guest is maintaining standards?" "She wasn't a guest." Veronika cried out, desperate to spin the narrative back to the one she controlled. "Look at her, she's a nobody. She came in here smelling like rain, dragging that baby and all his filth onto the floor. She was disturbing the clientele." Marcus turned his head slowly. He looked at the diners sitting at the nearby tables. He looked at the couple who had sneered at Elena earlier. They were currently staring at their tablecloths, terrified to make eye contact with the billionaire. "Disturbing the clientele," Marcus murmured. He walked over to where Elena stood. She was still trembling, clutching Leo against her chest. Marcus reached out, not to her, but to the floor. The billionaire owner of the Thorne Empire, a man who shook hands with presidents, bent his knees. He lowered himself onto the wet, dirty marble floor. A collective gasp went through the room. Marcus reached out and picked up the small, blue plastic horse that Officer Briggs had kicked aside. He wiped it gently on the sleeve of his custom-tailored suit jacket. He stood up and handed the toy to Elena. "I apologize," Marcus said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I invited you here to celebrate a miracle, and instead I brought you into a nightmare." Elena took the horse. Her fingers brushed his. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus turned back to Veronika. His eyes were no longer sad. They were infernos. "You called her a nobody," Marcus said, his voice rising just enough to reach every corner of the room. "You looked at her clothes and you decided she was worthless. You decided she was trash." "She is," Veronika blurted out, panic making her reckless. "She's just some babysitter or a cleaner. She doesn't belong here." "This woman," Marcus interrupted her, his voice booming like a cannon shot, "is Dr. Elena Vance." Veronika's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "She is the finest child psychologist in the state," Marcus continued, addressing the entire restaurant now. "She dedicates her life to children that the world has forgotten, children who are locked inside their own minds." Marcus walked toward Veronika until he was inches from her face. "My son Noah is 6 years old. For 6 years I have never heard his voice. I have never heard him say he is hungry. I have never heard him say he is hurt. I have never heard him say he loves me." Marcus's voice cracked. The raw pain of a father broke through the anger. "I hired the best doctors in the world. They all told me he was broken. They told me to give up." He pointed a shaking hand at Elena. But she didn't give up. She sat on the floor with him for months. She listened to the silence until she found the person hiding inside it. Tears were streaming down Marcus's face now, unashamed. "Tonight, Dr. Vance came here through the rain, on a bus with her own baby, just to tell me that my son spoke his first word. She came to tell me that my son called me Daddy." The room was so quiet you could hear the rain hitting the glass outside. The woman at the back table, the one who had told her husband not to get involved, was wiping tears from her eyes. "She gave me my life back," Marcus whispered, the intensity of his gratitude shaking the room. "She brought me the greatest news a father could ever receive." He looked at Veronika with pure disgust. "And you slapped her." Veronika was trembling so hard her heels clicked against the floor. "Sir, please." "I didn't know. If I had known she was a doctor." "That is exactly the problem," Marcus roared. The sudden shout made Veronika jump. "You only treat people with respect if you think they are important," Marcus yelled. "If she was wearing diamonds, you would have offered her champagne. But because she was wearing a t-shirt, you treated her like an animal. You don't have standards, Veronika. You have prejudice." I can fix this," Veronika sobbed. "I'll apologize. I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry." She turned to Elena, putting her hands together in a pleading gesture. Elena looked at the woman who had humiliated her. She looked at the woman who had called her son a bastard. "You are not sorry you did it," Elena said quietly. "You are sorry the owner saw you do it." "Veronika," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a terrifying calm. "Give me your badge." "Mr. Thorne, please," Veronika begged. "I've worked here for 3 years. My father knows the board of directors. You can't just." "You assaulted a guest," Marcus said. "You filed a false police report, and you discriminated against a mother based on how she looked. I can do whatever I want." He held out his hand. Veronika, sobbing hysterically, unpinned the gold name tag from her dress. She dropped it into Marcus's hand. "You are fired," Marcus said. "Effective immediately. And Veronika, don't bother applying to any restaurant in Chicago. I own most of the buildings they rent. I will make sure everyone knows exactly why you lost this job." "You can't do this," Veronika screamed, her mask of elegance completely shattering. "This is unfair." "Unfair?" Marcus laughed darkly. "Unfair is a mother being handcuffed in front of her child because she looked poor. Get out of my sight." Security guards, who had been standing by the door watching the scene unfold, finally stepped forward. They didn't wait for a signal. They grabbed Veronika by the arms. "Get off me." She shrieked as they dragged her toward the door. "My father will hear about this. You'll all be sorry." Her screams faded as the heavy glass doors closed behind her, leaving her out in the cold, pouring rain, the same rain she had mocked Elena for smelling like. Marcus took a deep breath, composing himself. He turned to Mr. Gable. The manager was trying to melt into the wallpaper. He was staring at his shoes, his face a mask of pure dread. "Gable," Marcus said. Mr. Gable flinched. "Sir." "Mr. Thorne, I was just following Veronika's lead. She said the woman was violent. I didn't see the start of it." "You are the manager," Marcus said. "It is your job to see everything." I know, sir. It was a lapse in judgment." "A lapse?" Marcus shook his head. "I watched you stand there while Officer Briggs dumped a baby's milk bottle onto the floor. I watched you turn your back while a woman begged for help." Marcus walked over to the manager. He reached out and straightened Mr. Gable's tie. "You cared more about the comfort of the rich people eating steak than the dignity of a human being," Marcus said. "You are a coward, Gable, and I don't employ cowards." "Sir, I have a mortgage," Gable whispered, his voice cracking. "And Dr. Vance has a baby to feed," Marcus shot back. "Pack your office. Leave your keys on the desk. If you are not out of the building in 10 minutes, security will escort you out too. Gable nodded, defeated. He turned and walked away, his shoulders slumped, his career in ruins. Finally, there was only one person left to deal with, Officer Briggs. The large police officer was still standing by the entrance, holding his handcuffs. He looked like a man who wished he could turn invisible. He had watched the most powerful man in the city fire his staff without blinking. And now that man was looking at him. Marcus turned slowly. He stared at the badge on Briggs's chest. "Officer Briggs," Marcus said. "Mr. Thorne," Briggs said. His voice was respectful now, terrified. "Sir, I want to apologize. There was a misunderstanding. The hostess, she gave me false information. I was just following protocol for a trespassing call." "Protocol," Marcus repeated. He walked over to the pile of baby supplies that was still scattered on the floor. He pointed at the diapers. He pointed at the spilled milk. "Is it protocol to dump a mother's bag on the ground?" Marcus asked. I was conducting a search for weapons," Briggs lied weakly. "Is it protocol to threaten to put a 10-month-old baby in foster care because his mother wanted to make a phone call?" Marcus asked, stepping closer. Briggs swallowed hard. Sweat was beading on his forehead. "Sir, she was resisting." "She was terrified," Marcus shouted. "You are a police officer. You are supposed to protect people. But you walked in here, saw a black woman in a T-shirt, and you decided she was a criminal. You didn't ask her side of the story. You didn't look at the evidence. You just took out your handcuffs." I made a mistake," Briggs whispered. "No," Marcus said. "Veronika made a mistake. You abused your power." Marcus pulled out his own phone. "I am calling the police commissioner," Marcus said calmly. "He is a personal friend of mine. We play golf on Sundays. I am going to tell him exactly what happened here tonight. I am going to tell him how you treated a renowned doctor like a street criminal." "Mr. Thorne, please," Briggs stepped forward, his hands shaking. "I have 15 years on the force. My pension. Please don't make the call. I'll apologize. I'll do anything." "You threatened to take her child," Marcus said, his eyes cold. "You don't deserve a badge." Marcus dialed the number and put the phone to his ear, never breaking eye contact with the officer. "Hello, Commissioner. It's Marcus Thorne." "Yes, I'm fine." "Listen, I have an officer here at the Obsidian. Badge number." Marcus leaned in to read the silver pin. 4922. "Yes, I need to file a formal complaint for misconduct, excessive force, and civil rights violations. I have witnesses. I have the entire restaurant." Marcus listened for a moment, then looked at Briggs. "Yes, I want him suspended pending an investigation. Immediately." Marcus hung up the phone. "Go back to the station, Briggs," Marcus said. "They are waiting for your badge and your gun." Officer Briggs looked at Elena. For a moment, there was anger in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defeat. He holstered his handcuffs. He adjusted his belt. And without a word, he turned and walked out into the rain, his career ending in the same doorway where he had tried to destroy Elena's life. The restaurant was silent again, but the tension was gone. The air felt lighter, cleaner. Marcus let out a long breath. His shoulders dropped. The anger drained out of him, leaving only sadness and regret. He turned to Elena. She was still standing by the pillar, holding Leo. She looked exhausted. Her cheek was swelling, turning a dark, angry purple. Her clothes were still wet. Marcus walked over to her. He didn't care about his Italian suit. He knelt down on the floor again. He began to pick up the diapers. He picked up the wipes. He picked up the pacifier. "Marcus, you don't have to do that," Elena whispered, shifting Leo so she could bend down. "I can get it." "No," Marcus said firmly. "I let this happen. Let me fix it." He gathered everything and placed it gently back into her bag. Then he stood up and offered her his hand. "Elena," he said, "I am so incredibly sorry. I should have been here sooner. I should have met you at the door." "It's okay," Elena said, her voice trembling slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. "You came when it mattered." "Let me look at your face," Marcus said gently. He reached out, his fingers hovering inches from her cheek. He flinched when he saw the cut on her lip. "We need to get some ice on that," he said. "Come, please." He guided her away from the entrance, away from the scene of her humiliation. He led her into the main dining room. As they walked, a strange thing happened. The diners, the people who had stared, the people who had judged, began to stand up. It started with the elderly woman at the back. She stood up as Elena passed, then the couple next to her, then a table of businessmen. One by one, they stood. It wasn't a standing ovation. It was a standing apology. It was a silent acknowledgement of respect. They watched the woman in the wet t-shirt walk through the golden room, and for the first time they saw her. Marcus led her to the best table in the house, a private booth near the fireplace, overlooking the city lights. "Sit," Marcus said, pulling out the velvet chair for her. "Rest." He waved a hand, and a waiter, a new one looking terrified and eager to please, rushed over. "Bring me ice," Marcus ordered. "Bring a warm blanket for the baby, and bring Dr. Vance whatever she wants to eat. The entire menu is hers." "Yes, Mr. Thorne," the waiter said, sprinting away. Elena sat down. The chair was soft. The fire was warm. Leo, sensing the change in atmosphere, finally stopped crying and rested his head on her shoulder. Marcus sat opposite her. He looked at her with an intensity that made Elena's heart skip a beat. "Now," Marcus whispered. "Please tell me." Elena smiled. It hurt her cheek, but she didn't care. "He stood in front of the picture," Elena said softly. "The one of the family. He looked at the father, and he looked at me." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes shimmering with tears. And he said it, Marcus, clear as day. He said, "Daddy." Marcus Thorne, the man who had just destroyed 3 careers with a few words, buried his face in his hands and wept. He cried for the years of silence. He cried for the hope he had almost lost. And he cried in gratitude for the woman sitting across from him, the woman in the stained jeans who had saved his world. But the story wasn't over. Justice had been served at the Obsidian, but the ripples of that night were far from finished. Veronika wasn't going to go down quietly, and Elena Vance was about to find out that being the hero came with its own set of complications. Because when you humiliate a bully, they don't just go away. They wait, and they plot. The dinner at the Obsidian was a blur. Elena sat in the velvet booth, holding a glass of sparkling water that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. She watched Marcus Thorne, a man who could buy entire islands, sitting across from her with red, puffy eyes, asking question after question about his son. "How did he say it?" Marcus asked, leaning in. "Did he look at you? Did he smile?" Elena answered every question with patience. She described the way Noah's lips had moved, the way his face had lit up. She painted the picture for him, giving him the memory he hadn't been there to see. For an hour, they weren't a billionaire and a struggling therapist. They were just 2 parents talking about the love they had for their children, but reality has a way of creeping back in. As the clock struck 9, Leo began to fuss in Elena's arms. The adrenaline that had sustained her through the assault and the confrontation was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion. Her cheek was throbbing with a dull, heavy pulse. The ice pack Marcus had ordered was now warm water in a cloth napkin. "I need to go," Elena whispered. "Leo needs his crib, and I need to go home." Marcus looked at the time and nodded. The billionaire mask slid back into place, but his eyes remained soft. "Of course," Marcus said. "My driver is outside, but I would like to drive you myself if you will allow me." Elena hesitated. She thought about her apartment. She thought about the peeling paint in the hallway, the flickering light bulb in the stairwell, the neighborhood where sirens were the background noise to sleep. Did she want Marcus Thorne to see that? But then she looked at the rain still lashing against the window. She looked at Leo, sleepy and warm. "Okay," she said. "Thank you." Walking out of the Obsidian was very different from walking in. This time, the new manager held the door open wide. The staff bowed their heads respectfully. There was no Veronika blocking the way. There was no Officer Briggs looming with handcuffs. Marcus led her to his silver sports car. Opened the passenger door himself, helping her secure Leo's car seat, which he had magically produced from his own SUV that Henry was driving into the back. The car smelled of leather and cedar. The engine purred to life, a sound of contained power. They drove in silence for a while. The city lights smeared across the rain-slicked windshield like streaks of gold and blood. "Elena," Marcus said quietly, keeping his eyes on the road. "I meant what I said back there, about the apology, but words are cheap. I want to make sure you know that I intend to make this right." "You fired them," Elena said, staring out at the passing buildings. "That is enough." "It is not enough," Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You were assaulted on my property, you were profiled, you were humiliated. If I hadn't walked in— God, Elena, if I hadn't walked in, you would be in a cell right now. And Leo." He couldn't finish the sentence. The thought of the baby in the foster system was too dark. "But you did walk in," Elena said. "You were there." "I shouldn't have had to be there," Marcus insisted. "This system, it is broken, and I have been blind to it because I live in a tower high above it." He glanced at her. He saw the bruise darkening on her cheekbone. It stood out starkly against her beautiful, dark skin. "I am going to pay for your legal fees," Marcus said suddenly. "If you want to sue Veronika, if you want to sue the police department, I will hire the best firm in Chicago. They will destroy them." Elena didn't answer immediately. She was watching the neighborhood change. The skyscrapers and luxury boutiques were fading away. The streets were getting darker, the potholes deeper. Liquor stores with barred windows replaced the cafes. Abandoned lots replaced the parks. They were entering the South Side. Elena felt a spike of shame, hot and sharp. She pulled her cardigan tighter around herself. She worked harder than anyone she knew. She had a doctorate. She saved lives. And yet this was where she lived, paycheck to paycheck, while Veronika likely lived in a high-rise downtown. Marcus slowed the car as they turned onto Elena's street. He navigated the expensive vehicle carefully around a pile of uncollected trash bags. He didn't say a word about the neighborhood. He didn't lock the doors nervously. He didn't look at her with pity. He just drove. "It is the brick building on the left," Elena whispered. "Number 400. Marcus pulled up to the curb. He put the car in park and turned to face her. "Elena," he said, "thank you for Noah and for tonight." "You are welcome," she said. He got out and walked around to open her door. He waited while she unbuckled Leo. He walked her to the front door of the apartment building, shielding her from the rain with his own jacket. They stood in the entryway under the buzzing yellow light. "Get some rest," Marcus said. "Take tomorrow off. I will pay for the session. Just rest." "I can't take off," Elena smiled sadly. "I have other kids, other Noahs waiting for me." Marcus looked at her with a mixture of awe and frustration. "You are stubborn, Dr. Vance." "I am a mother," she corrected him. "Good night, Marcus." "Good night, Elena." She watched him walk back to his car. She watched the silver taillights disappear into the rain. Then she turned and unlocked the heavy door, stepping back into her reality. Inside her apartment, it was quiet. She put Leo in his crib, kissing his soft cheek. She changed out of her damp clothes. She walked into the bathroom and turned on the light. She gasped. In the harsh fluorescent light of her bathroom mirror, the damage was undeniable. The left side of her face was swollen. A dark purple bruise in the shape of a handprint bloomed across her cheekbone. Her lip was cut. She reached up and touched the skin. It was tender, hot to the touch. Veronika's handprint, a mark of hate branded onto her skin. Elena sank onto the edge of the bathtub. The tears she had held back in the car finally came. She cried for the humiliation. She cried for the fear she had felt when the officer reached for her handcuffs. She cried because she was tired of being strong. She eventually washed her face, took 2 painkillers, and crawled into bed. She hugged her pillow, listening to the rain, praying that sleep would come. She didn't know that while she slept, the world was waking up. She didn't know that a 19-year-old diner named Kevin, who had been sitting at table 4, had recorded the entire incident on his phone. She didn't know that he had uploaded the video to TikTok with the caption, "Racist hostess slaps black doctor at the Obsidian. Wait for the ending." She didn't know that while she dreamed of Noah's voice, millions of people were watching her nightmare. The next morning, Elena woke up to a sound she didn't recognize. It wasn't her alarm clock. It wasn't Leo crying, it was her phone. It was vibrating against the nightstand, a constant, angry buzz that wouldn't stop. Elena groaned and rolled over. Her face throbbed. Her eye felt heavy and swollen. She reached out blindly and grabbed the phone. Her screen was lit up with notifications. Hundreds of them, thousands. Instagram, 99 plus notifications. Twitter, you are trending. Facebook, 50 new friend requests. Text messages, 42 unread. What? Elena whispered, her voice raspy with sleep. She opened her text messages first. The top one was from Sarah, the receptionist at the community center. "Elena, oh my God, are you okay? Everyone is talking about it, you're famous." Elena frowned. Famous? She opened Twitter. The #1 trending topic in Chicago and #3 in the United States was justice for Dr. Vance. Her heart started to pound. Her fingers shook as she clicked the hashtag. There it was, the video. It was filmed from a low angle, probably from a phone resting on a table. The audio was crisp. "I'll call him whatever I want. Now take your little bastard," and then the sound of the slap. Elena watched herself stumble on the small screen. She watched Veronika scream that she was being attacked. She watched Officer Briggs dump the diaper bag, and then she watched the comments. User 1, "That slap was brutal. I hope that hostess goes to jail." User 2, "The way the cop dumped the baby bag. My blood is boiling." User, "Does anyone know who she is? The caption says she's a doctor." User, "That's Dr. Elena Vance. She works at the South Side Center. She helped my nephew with his speech. She is a saint. This makes me so sick." Elena scrolled and scrolled. People were outraged. People were crying. People were demanding heads to roll. Then she saw a second video. This one was titled, "Billionaire Owner Shuts It Down." It showed Marcus entering. It showed the fear on Veronika's face. It showed the moment Marcus roared, "This woman is Dr. Elena Vance." Elena watched the video 3 times. Seeing it from the outside was different. In the moment, she had felt small. But on the screen, seeing Marcus stand up for her, seeing the way she held her head high even while crying, she didn't look weak. She looked like a survivor. Her phone rang in her hand, startling her. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" Elena answered cautiously. "Dr. Vance," a frantic voice answered. "This is a producer from Good Morning Chicago. We saw the video. We are so horrified by what happened to you. We would love to have you on the show this morning to tell your story. We can send a car." Elena stammered. "I don't. Please, Dr. Vance, the whole city is watching. You have a voice now." Elena hung up. She sat on the edge of her bed, her hand trembling. She walked to the mirror. The bruise was darker today, an ugly shade of black and yellow. She had a choice. She could hide. She could turn off her phone, go to work, and pretend it never happened. Marcus had fired them. Justice had been served right. But then she thought about Veronika's eyes, the pure, unadulterated hate. She thought about Officer Briggs and how easily he had abused his power. If Marcus hadn't come, she would be in jail. Her life would be over. What about the mothers who didn't know billionaires? What about the women who were slapped and cuffed and had no one to save them? Elena looked at her reflection. "Touch the bruise." "No," she whispered. "I am not hiding." But Veronika wasn't hiding either. Across the city, in a penthouse apartment that overlooked the lake, Veronika sat on a white leather sofa. Her eyes were red from crying, but mostly from rage. She held a glass of vodka in one hand and her phone in the other. She was watching the same videos. She was reading the comments calling her a monster, a racist, a Karen. They don't know anything, Veronika slurred, throwing the phone onto the cushion. She provoked me. She came into my restaurant looking like trash. The door to the penthouse opened. A man walked in. He was older, with silver hair and a suit that cost more than most houses. He carried himself with the arrogance of a man who had never been told no. It was Franklin Pierce, Veronika's father, a powerful lobbyist with connections to the mayor, the police union, and half the judges in the city. "Daddy," Veronika burst into fresh tears. "You have to help me. Marcus Thorne fired me. He humiliated me in front of everyone, and now the internet is trying to ruin my life." Franklin looked at his daughter. He didn't offer a hug. He walked to the bar and poured himself a drink. "I saw the video, Veronika," Franklin said calmly. "You lost your temper." "She assaulted me first." Veronika lied, believing her own delusion. "She tried to hit me. I was defending myself. You have to sue him, Daddy. You have to sue that woman. She ruined my reputation." Franklin took a sip of whiskey. He looked at the TV screen where the news was playing the clip of Marcus Thorne calling Veronika a bigot. "Marcus Thorne thinks he is untouchable," Franklin said, his voice low and dangerous. "He thinks because he has money, he can treat my daughter like a criminal." "He called the police on me," Veronika cried. "He threatened to blacklist me." Franklin set his glass down. "Stop crying, Veronika. It's unbecoming." He pulled out his phone. "Marcus made a mistake," Franklin said. "He picked a fight with the wrong family. He thinks the story ends with you getting fired. No, the story ends when we destroy him, and we destroy that little doctor he is so fond of." "What are you going to do?" Veronika asked, sniffing. "I'm going to make a call to the police union rep," Franklin said, a cruel smile touching his lips. "Officer Briggs is a member. If Marcus wants to wage war on the police, let's see what happens when the police wage war back. And as for Dr. Vance, let's see how perfect her record really is. Dig up everything. Her debts, her husband's death, her professional history. If she wants to be a celebrity, let's give her a scandal." Veronika smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Daddy." The battle lines were drawn. At the community center, Elena arrived late. She had to sneak in through the back door to avoid the news vans parked out front. When she walked into the lobby, the room went quiet. Sarah jumped up from her desk. "Elena," Sarah breathed, looking at the bruise. "Oh, honey," she hugged Elena tight. Elena flinched, her body still sore, but she leaned into the embrace. "I'm okay, Sarah, I just want to work." "You can't work today," Sarah said, pulling back. "Look at the waiting room." Elena peeked around the corner. The waiting room was full. But not with patients. It was full of flowers, bouquets of roses, lilies, daisies. There were cards everywhere. "People have been dropping them off all morning," Sarah said. "Neighbors, parents of other kids, someone even sent a basket of muffins." Elena walked over to a card attached to a large bouquet of sunflowers. She opened it, to Dr. Vance. "You helped my son 3 years ago. I saw the video. We stand with you. Do not let them break you." Elena felt a lump form in her throat. She wasn't alone. But then her phone rang again. It was Marcus. "Elena," his voice was urgent. "Are you somewhere safe?" "I'm at work," Elena said. "Marcus, the flowers. Thank you, but—" "Listen to me," Marcus interrupted. "I just got a call from my contact at the police station. Officer Briggs isn't going down quietly. He has retained a lawyer provided by the union. And Veronika's father, do you know who Franklin Pierce is?" "No," Elena said, a knot of fear tightening in her stomach. "He is a fixer, a powerful man with dirty hands. He is already spinning a narrative that you provoked the attack. He is going to try to smear you, Elena." Elena gripped the phone. "Smear me? How? I am the one with the bruise." "It doesn't matter to men like him," Marcus said grimly. "They will say you were aggressive. They will say you were trespassing. They will try to dig up dirt on your past to make you look like an unfit mother so that child services gets involved for real." The room spun. "Child services. They can't do that," Elena whispered. Leo is my life. I know, Marcus said. That is why we need to strike first. I have a lawyer waiting for you. Her name is Annalise. She is a shark. I want you to meet her today. We aren't just going to defend you, Elena. We are going to file a massive civil rights lawsuit against the Obsidian's parent company, yes, against my own company Insurance, and against the city. Marcus, I can't afford a shark. I told you, Marcus said, his voice soft but firm. You saved my son. Now let me save you. Please, let me fight this for you. Elena looked at the flowers. She looked at the picture of Noah on her wall. She touched her bruised cheek. She thought about Veronika's father coming for her son. The fear vanished, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They wanted to fight. They wanted to threaten her child. They had no idea what a mother was capable of. Okay, Elena said. Tell me where to meet her. The law offices of Sterling and Associates were located in a glass tower that touched the clouds. Elena walked in, carrying Leo, wearing her best blazer over a clean t-shirt. She still wore sneakers because she couldn't fit her swollen feet into heels, but she held her head high. Marcus was waiting for her in the conference room. Beside him sat a woman who radiated power. Annalise Sterling was a black woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a suit that looked like armor. She didn't smile when Elena walked in. She looked at the bruise, then she looked at Leo. Dr. Vance, Annalise said, extending a hand. Let's sit down, we have a lot of work to do. Elena sat. Marcus poured her a glass of water. Here is the situation, Annalise began, not wasting a second. Franklin Pierce has already leaked a story to the tabloids. They are going to run a piece tomorrow claiming that you have a history of instability since your husband's death. They are going to claim you used your baby as a prop to gain access to a wealthy man. That is disgusting, Elena gasped. That is a lie. It is a strategy, Annalise corrected. They want to scare you into silence. They want you to accept a small settlement and sign a non-disclosure agreement so Veronika can go back to her life. The question is, Dr. Vance, do you want money or do you want blood? Elena looked at Marcus. He nodded encouragingly. I don't care about the money, Elena said. I want them to admit what they did. I want Veronika to know she can't hurt people just because she is rich. And I want Officer Briggs off the streets so he never does this to another black boy. Annalise smiled. It was a terrifying, beautiful smile. Good answer, the lawyer said. Then we are going to war. But I need you to be brave, Elena, because before we win, they are going to make it very, very ugly. I am ready, Elena said. Good, Annalise opened a file. Because we just found something out. Officer Briggs, this wasn't his first time. We have dug up 3 other complaints against him for excessive force against minority women. All of them were swept under the rug by the union. Elena's eyes went wide. But this time, Annalise tapped the table. They didn't have a viral video, and they didn't have a billionaire witness. We are going to hold a press conference. Tomorrow morning, on the steps of the courthouse. We are going to control the narrative. Me, Elena asked. Speak to the press. You have the voice, Elena, Marcus said gently. You found Noah's voice, now use yours. Elena took a deep breath. She looked down at Leo, sleeping peacefully in her lap. Okay, she said, I'll do it. Little did she know, Veronika was planning a surprise for that press conference. A surprise that was meant to humiliate Elena on national television. The war had begun. And the first battle was just hours away. The morning sun hit the pavement outside the courthouse, but the mood was far from bright. News vans were parked along the curb. Reporters stood with microphones, waiting for a statement. Elena stood next to Marcus Thorne on the steps. She felt exposed. The bruise on her face was covered by oversized sunglasses, but she knew everyone was looking at it. She held Leo close to her chest. You don't have to say anything, Marcus whispered to her. I will handle them. No, Elena said, her voice steady. I lived it, I will speak on it. But before they could begin, a shrill voice cut through the crowd. There he is, the man who ruined my life. It was Veronika. She pushed her way through the reporters, followed by a man in a cheap suit, clearly a lawyer she had hired from a billboard ad. Veronika wasn't wearing her elegant black dress today. She was wearing white, looking pale and crying, playing the role of the victim to perfection. "He fired me wrongfully," Veronika screamed, pointing at Marcus. "I was just doing my job. He fired me because I wouldn't let his mistress break the rules," the crowd gasped. Cameras flashed blindingly. Elena froze. "Mistress." Veronika stepped in front of the microphones. "That woman," she sobbed, pointing a shaking finger at Elena. "She attacked me first. She threw her phone at me, and Mr. Thorne took her side because, well, we all know why powerful men take the side of pretty women." It was a disgusting, low lie. Veronika was trying to paint Elena as a gold digger and Marcus as a corrupt billionaire. Elena felt the anger rise in her throat. She stepped forward, but Marcus put a gentle hand on her arm. He didn't look angry, he looked amused. He stepped up to the podium. He adjusted the microphone. He looked at Veronika, who was still fake, crying into a tissue. "Are you finished, Veronika?" Marcus asked calmly. "I will sue you for millions," Veronika yelled. "My father is Franklin Pierce. He knows the mayor. He will shut you down." Marcus laughed. It was a dry, humorless laugh. "I made a few calls this morning, Veronika," Marcus said, his voice amplified across the street. "I was curious about this powerful father you always threaten people with." Veronika stopped crying. Her eyes darted side to side. "Franklin Pierce is a powerful lobbyist, yes," Marcus continued. "But I called him, and do you know what he told me?" Marcus leaned into the mic. "He said he has never met you. He has no daughter named Veronika." The crowd murmured. Veronika's face went deadly pale. "You lied on your application," Marcus said, pulling a piece of paper from his pocket. "Your real name is Veronika Miller. Your father isn't a lobbyist. He works at a gas station in Ohio. You aren't a wealthy heiress. You are a fraud who bullies people to feel better about your own empty life." Veronika took a step back. Her lawyer looked at her, confused. "Is this true?" "He's lying." Veronika shrieked, but her voice cracked. "He's making it up." "I have your birth certificate right here," Marcus said, holding up the paper. "You lied to get this job. You lied to intimidate the staff. And yesterday you lied to the police to try and destroy an innocent mother." The reporters turned their cameras on Veronika. The questions came fast and hard. "Did you fake your identity? Why did you slap a doctor? Is it true you're a fraud?" Veronika looked around, trapped. Her lie had crumbled. She wasn't powerful. She was just a mean, insecure woman who had been caught. Veronika stammered. She turned and tried to run, pushing through the crowd, hiding her face from the very cameras she had tried to use. "Now that the trash has taken itself out," Marcus said, turning his back on her fleeing figure, "we have more important business." He turned to Elena. The playfulness vanished from his face. He looked at her with deep respect. "Elena," Marcus said, "I cannot erase the humiliation you felt yesterday. I cannot take back the slap, but I can make sure that the obsidian never represents hate again." He gestured to the grand doors of the restaurant. "This place was built to be the best, but yesterday it was the worst. It needs a new heart. It needs a leader who understands compassion, who understands people." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a blue leather folder. He handed it to Elena. "What is this?" Elena asked, confused. "I don't want to just pay your legal fees, Elena," Marcus said, "and I don't want to just give you a free meal." He opened the folder. It was a legal contract. "For saving my son's voice, and for showing me the cracks in my own business, I am transferring 50% of the ownership of the obsidian to you." Elena nearly dropped Leo. "What? Effective immediately," Marcus smiled. "You are not a guest here, Elena. You are the owner. You are the boss." The crowd erupted. The reporters went wild. Elena looked down at the paper. Dr. Elena Vance, co-owner. "Marcus, I can't," Elena whispered. "I'm a therapist. I don't know how to run a restaurant." "You know how to treat people," Marcus said. "That is the only part that was missing. We can hire managers for the numbers, but I need you for the soul." He looked at the restaurant. "Veronika kicked you out because she thought she owned the place. I want to see her face when she realizes she has to answer to you." Elena looked at the building. She thought about the moment she stood in the rain, feeling worthless. She thought about the slap. Then she looked at Leo, sleeping safely in her arms. She wasn't just doing this for herself. She was doing this to build a future for him. She looked at Marcus and smiled. "Okay," Elena said, "partner." 2 weeks later, the Obsidian reopened. The vibe was different. The stiff, cold atmosphere was gone. It was still elegant, still expensive, but there was a warmth to it now. Elena walked through the dining room. She wasn't wearing sneakers today. She wore a sharp navy blazer and professional trousers, looking every bit the powerful owner she now was. She walked to the podium. "Good evening, Dr. Vance," the new hostess, a kind young woman named Maya, said with a smile. "Good evening, Maya," Elena replied. "Is the house full?" "Fully booked, ma'am," Elena smiled. She turned to walk into the kitchen, but the front door opened. A woman walked in. She looked disheveled. Her roots were showing, her clothes were wrinkled, and she looked desperate. It was Veronika. She didn't see Elena at first. She walked straight to Maya at the podium. "I need to speak to the manager," Veronika demanded, though her voice lacked its old fire. "I need my final paycheck. They mailed it to my old address and I need the money." Maya looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, you are banned from the premises." "I just want my check," Veronika snapped. "I have rent to pay. Nobody will hire me. I have nothing." "Is there a problem here?" Veronika froze. She knew that voice. She turned around slowly. Elena stood there. She looked radiant, powerful. The bruise on her cheek had healed, leaving her skin flawless. "You," Veronika whispered. "Hello, Veronika," Elena said, her voice as calm as a summer lake. "I suppose you're here to gloat." Veronika spat, though her lip quivered. "Here to enjoy your free dinner." Elena stepped forward. She didn't shout. She didn't slap her. She didn't need to. "I am not here for dinner," Elena said. "I am here to inspect my restaurant." Veronika blinked. "You're what?" "Marcus gave me half the company," Elena said simply. "I own this building. I own the table you are leaning on. I own the check you are asking for." Veronika's face crumbled. The reality hit her like a physical blow. The woman she had called trash was now the person signing her paycheck. You own it," Veronika whispered. "Yes," Elena said, "and since I am the owner, I make the rules." Veronika looked down at her shoes. She looked broken. "Please," Veronika whispered. "I need that check. I'm being evicted tomorrow." Elena looked at the woman who had tried to ruin her life. She could have called security. She could have thrown her out into the street just like Veronika had done to her. But Elena remembered what Marcus had said. "I need you for the soul." She walked to the podium and pulled out an envelope. It was Veronika's final check. Elena held it out. Veronika reached for it, her hand shaking. "Thank you," Veronika choked out. "Veronika," Elena said. Veronika looked up, tears in her eyes. "Take the money," Elena said, "and use it to learn a lesson. You are not better than anyone because of where you work or what you wear. You are only as good as how you treat people. Now leave my restaurant and never come back." Veronika took the envelope and fled. She ran out the door, disappearing into the night, carrying nothing but her shame. Elena watched her go. She took a deep breath. The air smelled of roasted garlic and fresh flowers. It smelled of victory. She turned around to see Marcus standing by the kitchen door, holding a glass of juice for her. He was smiling. "You handled that with grace," Marcus said. "She wasn't worth the anger," Elena replied, taking the juice. "I have better things to focus on." "Like what?" Elena looked at a table in the corner. There sat Noah, eating macaroni and cheese. He saw Elena and waved. "Elena!" Noah shouted across the fancy restaurant. It was the best sound in the world. "Like him," Elena smiled. She had walked in through the rain as a victim. She stood now as a queen. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was just the beginning. And that is how the tables turned. Veronika thought her fake status and arrogance made her better than everyone else. But in the end, it wasn't money or clothes that defined true value, it was the content of character. Elena proved that dignity cannot be taken away, it can only be recognized. If this story touched your heart, or if you just loved seeing a bully get exactly what she deserved, please hit that like button. It helps us share more stories like this. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story where the arrogant get exactly what they deserve. Because here, we believe that every voice deserves to be heard. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never let anyone tell you that you don't belong.